Tonight on The Buzz, we look at the state of production technology today. We start with David Walton, Assistant Vice President of Marketing for Professional Products at JVC Kenwood, USA. Dave shares his thoughts on the challenges facing camera manufacturers and where production is headed in the future. Next, Piet Thiele is the Product Manager for the Cine Lens division of Schneider-Kreuznach. While the camera industry is challenged by cell phone cameras, he showcases a growing need for high-quality lenses coming from surprising markets. Next, Marcelo Lewin is the founder of HowToCreateVR.com and a passionate VR evangelist. Tonight, he explains the different versions of VR, why filmmakers should start paying attention, and describes a very exciting near-term future for VR. Next, Steve Weiss, creative director for Zacuto, isn't impressed with gear. For him, it's about talent and story. Tonight, Steve shares his thoughts on what filmmakers need to know to stay in business. And, as you'll discover, it isn't gear. All this, plus James DeRuvo's journal. The Buzz starts now.
Since the dawn of digital filmmaking.
Authoritative.
One show serves a worldwide network of media professionals.
Current.
Uniting industry experts.
Production.
Filmmakers.
Post-production.
And content creators around the planet.
Distribution.
From the media capital of the world in Los Angeles, California, the Digital Production Buzz goes live now.
Welcome to the Digital Production Buzz, the world's longest-running podcast for the creative content industry, covering media production, post-production, and marketing around the world. Hi, my name is Larry Jordan. This month, we're looking at the state of the media industry from production to post. We began with a look at post-production. Last week, we talked with producers. Tonight, we look at production, and next week, we look at media technology in general. One of the more common themes we've heard so far is that change is continual and accelerating. But as Dave Walton explains in his interview, when have we not been challenged by change? As we were planning tonight's show, I wanted to cast a wide net. So we're talking with camera manufacturers, lens manufacturers, a VR evangelist, and Steve Weiss, who's focused on the business of staying in business. By the way, Marcelo Lewin's interview on VR was eye-opening to me. Granted, I've been a VR skeptic, but there is so much more to this format than is visible at NAB. Many filmmakers tend to view VR through the lens of a camera. However, when you remove the camera, magical things can happen. You'll enjoy all of our interviews tonight. Every one of them has interesting things for each of us to think about. By the way, if you enjoy The Buzz, please give us a positive rating and review in the iTunes store. We appreciate your support to help us grow our audience. And now it's time for James DeRuvo's Journal. Hello, James.
Happy Thursday, Larry.
And a happy Thursday to you, too. What is in the news this week?
Adobe has expanded Premiere Rush, their iOS editing app. It's now available on Android. Adobe has launched Premiere Rush for Android. It's got all the same tools available on the iOS platform, including intuitive editing, color correction, AI-powered audio sweetening through Adobe Sensei, and a customizable motion graphics through Adobe Stock. So now users will be able to shoot on their Android device, do some basic editing, share it to the internet, and then sync it back up to their desktop through Creative Cloud for more advanced post-production workflow.
So what's your take on this?
With Premiere Rush coming to Android, this is bound to heat up a mobile filmmaking platform war. Up to now, users didn't have a Hallmark editing app for the Android platform, although users have been able to shoot Filmic Pro on Android for about a year now. Now that Adobe has swung their support over to Android, I expect that a mobile filmmaking war will erupt and mobile filmmaking apps on Android will explode.
Okay. Adobe is our lead. What's our second story?
Tough news for Nikon.
Oh, dear.
Nikon has had to issue a recall on select Z7 and Z6 full-frame mirrorless cameras. There's a small batch of the Z6 and Z7 mirrorless cameras that are experiencing problems with their vibration reduction feature due to a flaw in manufacturing. And although not every camera is affected, Nikon is encouraging all Z series users to go to a pair of websites they have created called serial number checkers so that they can input their serial number and see if their cameras are affected by the recall. And you can find those links on our website at dottlenews.com. Nikon will pay for the repair plus shipping to and from the Nikon repair facility, and they'll do it regardless of their warranty status.
Sounds like challenging times for Nikon.
It's very true, Larry. Though the Z series is an impressive mirrorless camera, and Nikon pulled out all the stops to hype this new camera line, it hasn't really translated into the kind of sales Nikon was hoping for. The Sony full-frame mirrorless camera is still outselling both the Nikon and Canon series combined. And so Nikon has been pulling all the stops. They're trying to do everything they can to get people to buy the Z series, including offering trade-in values, adding 12-bit RAW and a firmware update this summer, and they're even giving filmmakers the opportunity to rent a Z6 filmmaking kit for up to a week. Anything to get shooters hooked on this camera. And the videos are remarkable. So, I mean, I understand why they're trying to do it. But with this recall issue, it's going to be a tough road to hoe for a while, I'm afraid.
Okay, that's Nikon. What's our third story this week?
Could SD Express be poised to become the once and future king of media cards? The SD Association has announced a new spec for the SD card called SD Express. It's a new media card architecture that utilizes the same NVMe interface enjoyed by SSD and other flash storage devices. It will also utilize the speeds of PCI Express to transfer data to your desktop at a theoretical limit of 1 gigabyte per second. It looks great on paper, but will it stand up? Only time will tell. But users will also be able to use these SD Express cards in slower SD card models, but only at 1/10 the performance.
Now, clarify this for me. Is this a released product or is this a spec?
No, right now it's only a white paper stage at the moment, but the SD Cards Association is clearly preparing for an 8K future and doing some hardcore math to make sure the SD spec has legs for the next several years. But my opinion is that with Compact Flash Express making inroads and CFast being very dominant in the professional realm, I'm not sure this won't be a pricey option for the consumer-prosumer market for at least a few years.
Those are our three lead stories. What other stories are you following for this week?
Other stories we're following this week include future versions of DJI's drones will carry a transponder so pilots can see them coming and going, and vice versa. Panasonic is coming out with an L-mount cinema camera next week. And how about a handy fog machine that fits in your pocket?
What I want is a machine that fits in my pocket that allows me to disappear. But a fog machine is a start. Where can we go on the web for industry news and reviews like this?
All these stories and more can be found at dottlenews.com or on Twitter at @dottlenews.
James DeRuvo is the editor-in-chief of Dottle News and joins us every week. We'll see you next Thursday.
See you next Thursday.
I want to introduce you to a new website. Thalo.com. Thalo is an artist community and networking site for creative people to connect, be inspired, and showcase their creativity. Thalo.com features content from around the world with a global perspective on all things creative. Thalo is the place for creative folks to learn, collaborate, market, and sell their works. Thalo is a part of Thalo Arts, a worldwide community of artists, filmmakers, and storytellers. From photography to filmmaking, performing arts to fine arts, and everything in between, Thalo is filled with the resources you need to succeed. Visit Thalo.com and discover how their community can help you connect, learn, and succeed. That's Thalo.com. David Walton is an expert in the field of cameras. He's also the Assistant Vice President of Marketing for Professional Products at JVC Kenwood, USA. He's based out of the company's headquarters in Wayne, New Jersey. Welcome back, Dave. It's always good to talk to you.
Good to be here, Larry.
Today, we're looking at the current state of cameras and production. But before we get into that, how would you describe your role at JVC?
Well, Larry, this is my 39th year with JVC, and I started, actually, I came into the company from a production background, and I just love the equipment so much that I had to get my hands on it full time, and it seemed like the best way to go. At the time, we were building cameras that you had to use an umbilical cable to a recorder, and you plugged the two together, and you went out and you shot your program. That progressed, of course, to putting the recording device, the tape, into the camera. Then we marched on and replaced the tape with hard disks. And then the hard disks eventually were replaced by solid state. And then somebody said, hey, maybe we can put more pixels onto the imager and get out of this SD world. And then we worked our way into HD, and now we're in 4K. And now we're looking at things like 6K and 8K. And a lot of people ask me, where will it end? When do I have enough pixels? And so that's kind of where we are now.
39 years covers just about the most dramatic change in video that I can imagine, from the very earliest days of video through today's digital technology. That is an amazing lifespan.
A lot of people don't realize that when we started, that you were developing tape, and people can't even imagine that. Developing tape.
Yep, I do remember. And lest I wax rhapsodic of the old days, I'm going to change the subject quickly because I still have fond memories of threading 2-inch tape machines and getting ready for a newscast.
Okay.
As you survey the production landscape today, the one word that other guests have used over past shows to describe it is that we're in a time of intense change. How does it look to you?
I can't remember when we didn't have a time of intense change. And my little history that I just gave kind of summarizes a lot of that. I can remember meetings with the television networks in New York City, and we'd go in there with an idea, and we'd show them, and then we'd come back a year later with some prototypes and products, and they'd come back to us and say, well, that was what we thought we wanted a year ago, but it's all changed now. Everything has changed. As a manufacturer, it's hard to keep up with that. We do a survey. In fact, I'm just getting ready to put out about a 30-question survey about cinema 4K cameras, and we're going to launch this survey at Cine Gear. I can't help but think about those experiences with the TV networks where, yeah, you ask them questions and you get good, honest answers from somebody, and then when you go and you create the product that they thought they wanted a year later, the landscape has changed.
Michael Kamas made a comment a few weeks ago that most of the improvements in cameras today are incremental, that there isn't a new breakthrough technology driving camera technology. Would you agree or disagree?
I would say that the breakthrough, a lot of people don't fully still appreciate it, but it is a real breakthrough, and that is in the mobile phone. Here is a technology, what you're carrying in your pocket, that is so good at making pictures, moving pictures and still pictures, that it has displaced a lot of the technology that's gone into professional products. A lot of people don't realize that in the professional side of the business, a lot of the products that we have built have been a result of the consumer electronics, whether it's in tape recording and the mechanisms and motors and scanners, or whether it's in the cameras and the LSIs and the signal processors and the chips. It costs a lot of money to build a camera. If you want to build the LSI that goes in to do the video processing in a video camera, you can spend $2 to $5 million. And if you're only going to be selling a few handful of those every month, you really won't be able to amortize that development. When we had consumer products that were selling in the tens of thousands every month, you could build a chip for those cameras and then exploit that chip in a professional piece of equipment and give a very good value on a very high performance product for the professional market. That base has disappeared because of the cell phone. that technology base. So manufacturers are now trying to figure out, how do we make those same changes in progress, but with much lower quantities and still keep the prices down? We don't have that high volume consumer business behind us to drive those prices down on professional gear. So that's a real challenge.
One of the things that JVC as a company is highlighting is the concept of the connected camera. What does this mean, and why is that important to you?
Well, it's important for a variety of reasons. Way back in the early 2000s, 2003, we introduced a product called Streamcorder, and it was basically a video camera, a professional camcorder that would do live streaming over the internet. People scratched their heads and said, "What's that?" Wi-Fi connection to your facility. What's that? What's Wi-Fi? But we've taken that same technology and we've used today's technology to turn it into not only one camera, but a whole line of cameras that can do live streaming, multi-camera stream. You can stream multi-cameras and do all the remote control and signal processing changes to the cameras via a wireless connection. So that's what we mean by connected cam. These cameras are not just individual products, but they are part of a much larger network of video products that all work together.
I want to come back to this concept of change that we started our conversation with. It used to be, back in the early days when you and I were both starting out, that we could buy a Sony Betacam. We'd use that for 10 years. We could amortize the heck out of it. But those days seem to be past. The change in camera technology is so rapid. What advice do you have for camera folks looking to buy a camera today that want it to last for a while?
I don't think it's going to be an issue as long as you're staying within the same format. The main changes that have happened have been on the display side, what people watch. As long as people are still able to produce good quality HD video or 4K video for those who want more resolution in the 16:9 format, I don't think you're going to go wrong with a good quality 4K or HD camera. Most of the cameras now have moved up to 4K capabilities, but what we found is that people using them are still using HD. So as long as you have at minimum good HD quality, you're able to produce content that people can use for the variety of needs they have, video needs. The actual content, where it goes, has changed a lot. People do watch video now on the internet, and let's say you're trying to make a living eking out some industrial, some corporate business. Well, one of the things that we all, I think, can appreciate when we do our shopping is we find a YouTube video from a company that explains a particular product we're interested in. How well that video is done, how well it's produced, will have a lot to do with whether we buy their product or not. Well, it's changed because that's an opportunity for a producer, but you want it to be good quality, but certainly HD quality, very good quality. And I don't think the viewer is going to care whether that's recorded on an SD memory card or on some other device. It doesn't really matter as long as you can shoot it, you can edit it, and you can get it distributed where it has to go, and it's very good quality. That's what matters.
Part of your challenge in marketing is to take a look into the future and try and figure out where the company needs to head. What are your thoughts on the future? Are you optimistic, or is it a time for pulling back?
It's measured optimism. It is optimism with the realization that, yes, we aren't going to be the same type of company and have the same type of products we did 20 or 30 years ago. We have to acknowledge the fact that people in all walks of life are walking around with very high quality cameras, that they can shoot video with a cell phone that is on par with some of the best video we've seen. That doesn't mean that people who make content for a living are going to be somehow slighted from this. There are all kinds of opportunities out there, as I mentioned, just with the fact that more people are watching video now than ever before, thanks to the internet. They're not watching it in the same way. So I think for companies like ours, I think there's a very good future. We just have to stay on top of it by building the products people want and need.
And for people who want to find out the products that JVC offers, where can they go on the web?
Easily enough, they can go to pro.jvc.com. which gets you right into the professional area. And we've got our cameras and our system components, studio monitors, field monitors. Everything we make is right there.
That website is 3 words, pro.jvc.com.
Got it.
pro.jvc.com. And David Walton is the Assistant Vice President of Marketing for Professional Products at JVC Kenwood. And Dave, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Larry.
Piet Thiele is the product manager for the Cine division of Schneider-Kreuznach. He's involved in a German lens maker's Cine lenses, which includes the Xenon product line. Hello, Pete. Welcome back.
Hello, Larry. Thank you for the invitation.
This week, we're looking at the state of cameras and production. But before we head in that direction, how would you describe your role at Cine?
I'm the product manager, so the first thing I always have to do is to look for the demand in the market, especially in lenses, also in filters. But this is the main thing I have to do, to go to the users, talk to the people, and I have to know what they want next in the next years to make great movies.
How would you describe the state of production today?
I think the two things that changed in the last years is that cameras and lenses become affordable. So real Cine lenses and cameras which make real good videos and movie clips are becoming affordable for newcomers. And the other change was it is possible to stream or to transfer or broadcast your video into the whole world without any special tools, just with your computer and all of that. So these are the main things that many newcomers comes into the market and change the whole game.
What impact on high quality lenses are cell phones having? Because now everybody's got a camera in their pocket.
Yeah, there's also a change that every person has the smartphone and make great movies with that. It's also an impact. But I think that these people who start with a smartphone, this is just to get a feeling for real good movies, and then they want to become better and better. I think also the big cameras and the lenses are still important also for the newcomers and also for the people who just play in first with their smartphones. But in the future, I don't know, maybe when you look at the Google phones, they have the best camera, what I think, and the software algorithms are so great. So I'm a little bit afraid what happened in the future, but I think it will take some years.
Where is the market for lenses today? Does it remain with traditional filmmakers, or is it expanding into new areas like corporate or houses of worship?
It is expanding a lot of in these things, commercial, corporate movies, image movies, web series. It's a big thing, non-budget web series for festivals, short movies, all of that. So traditional film market or Hollywood or kind of that, it's just only one part of the business anymore. And there are other countries like China or India becoming bigger and bigger in this industry too. And I think the big growth is also in the entry level for the newcomers. People coming from school and just have a small camera and then they put a still photography lens on it and make good movies, but then they realize, hey, they are something I can do better, and then they want a Cine lens, a purpose-built Cine lens, and then they make a better movies. And this is, I think, one of the main game changers and maybe a danger for some older cinematographers or older DPs who still believe that they are the only ones on the planet. This is what happened in the last years, and it goes on.
Unlike just about any other technology that attaches to a camera, lenses don't become obsolete. In fact, many cinematographers brag that they're using legendary lenses from 30 years ago. Why should someone consider buying new lenses?
Good question. You have to find your appropriate lens for the movie. There are still possibilities for us as lens manufacturer to create a special lens. We have a lot of opportunities in this technology time. In these years, we have special coatings, we have special new glasses. Things change, and we can create right now new characteristics and spirit in the new lens. We have new software programs which change the whole development of a lens. Now we really know what will happen when we built a prototype. In the past, we built a lens, we built a prototype, and then we look through the camera and look what happened in the final image. Right now, we have the whole impact, the whole influence on the final image before we built any lens, before we built any prototype. And so we can go to the users, show them our simulations on a computer and say, okay, do you want to change the flares or the ghost and all that things to another color? Do you want this or this? There are new possibilities to create new looks, new characteristics for lenses. And this is a really cool tool to have that.
As you mentioned, there's many, many different lenses to choose from, not just from your company, but from all of your competition. How does a cinematographer decide which lens they want to use either for their project or just as their general go-to lens?
It's a personality thing, of course, but it depends on what you want to tell the audience and what do you want to create emotions in the audience, or do you want to show the real world, so real realistic, real sharp and details and all of that. So it really depends on the movie you shot. It is not really you can say this is the best lens for you or this is the best lens overall. I always said you need the appropriate lens for your purpose. And sometimes it's my lens from Schneider and sometimes it's the lens from another manufacturer. So I'm not afraid when I go into a test between my lens and the other lens manufacturers. So it is always a feeling from the DP or the director and also the producer which lens they want to use. At the end, it's depend what final image you want to go for and what thing you want to create for your audience.
Part of your job is to take a look at the industry and figure out where it's going for the next 2 years and plan products to meet that. As you look to the future, what are the challenges that you see for lens makers?
To create lenses which are not only sharp and neutral, so you have to go to the users all the time, every day, and talk to them. And then you are able to create something really special with all the technologies I mentioned a few minutes before. There are also other things like the tilt from Cine tilt, which we talked last year about that, which is totally different from a normal lens. So these are really good ideas which takes us forward. But we are also looking into the camera market because it's always depends what the camera manufacturers are doing right now. So now the full frame is a big market. So we have to take care that our lenses cover full frame also in the future, that we are more universal and have all the stuff right for these cameras. But we have also take care about the newcomers, which have not so many budget, but they want to make good movies. Can do the high-level products, which a lens costs $30,000 or $40,000 or $50,000, or you can go to the other direction, to the entry level. This is what we have to decide in the future. So I don't want to talk about too much of it. To do both for some lens manufacturers, it's really hard. There are some manufacturers who did that quite well, but sometimes you have to decide in which direction you have to go. And then you have a lot of possibilities to make great lenses with new technologies, and there is still no end for new glass, for new coatings, or for new constructions for a lens.
As you look to the future, are you optimistic or concerned?
For motion picture, I'm very optimistic. Video becoming more important every day. You look on Vimeo or YouTube. The motion picture is very, very important. Video, it's becoming more and more. And you see that also on YouTube when you look on some vlogs or other things. There are so great newcomers which do not go the traditional way of a DP from former times, or they don't went to or go to a university or film school. They do it by their own. They just do it. And so I'm really looking forward to work with kind of these guys because they make great high quality content with affordable equipment. And so this could be fun to work with these guys. So I'm happy to be here.
And for people who want to learn more about the lenses that Schneider-Kreuznach makes, where can they go on the web?
Yeah, they can go to Schneider-Kreuznach, oneword.com.
That website is Schneider-Kreuznach.com, and Piet Thiele is the product manager for the Cine division of Schneider-Kreuznach. Piet, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Larry.
Marcelo Lewin is the founder of HowToCreateVR.com. He's also a VR evangelist focusing on VR and AR experiences for the enterprise. In his previous life, he's been a filmmaker, photographer, podcaster, project manager, and web developer. Hello, Marcelo. Welcome back.
Larry, lovely to speak with you again. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has been a long while. Tonight, we're looking at the current state of cameras and production. To get us started, how would you describe HowToCreateVR.com?
If you want to discover virtual reality and understand what it is and how to use it for the enterprise, for narrative, for animation, for gaming, you'll be able to discover a variety of technologies. Then you can learn how to use those technologies to then go and create. So the tagline is discover, learn, create, discover VR, learn how to create VR, and then go do it.
What was it that first got you interested in VR?
Oh my God. I put on the Oculus VR headset and it just blew my mind. I was a skeptic of virtual reality. I tried it many years ago. I got sick and I just didn't believe in it. But when I put on the Rift, everything changed. Truly, it's the future of computing because if you think about it, we all live in XYZ. And that's what virtual reality is. It's XYZ. There is no interface. There is nothing for you to learn because it's the way you live.
I will confess that I'm a skeptic on VR, but let me come back at you. When you're wearing a VR headset, you're inside a sphere looking out. In real life, we are outside a sphere looking in. It's like a 180-degree difference. Would you agree or disagree?
We are in a sphere. It just happens that that sphere is just open, right? And we have a sky, but we're still in a sphere. And we have to make differences between VR and 360. And I know that's a religious war for a lot of people, but 360 is something called 3 degrees of freedom, which means you're in the middle and the only thing you can do is look all around, but you can't move. True virtual reality gives you 6 degrees of freedom, which means you can move forward, backwards, up and down, right and left, jump. You can do whatever you want, just like you do in real life. As we add haptics, as we add all sorts of things where your body is connected to VR, and it's going to happen, it's happening now, but it will happen more in the future, it will be very hard to tell the difference between virtual reality and reality.
I want to come back to this for a second, because on your website, you do differentiate between different categories of VR. You have VR, 360 VR, and cinematic VR. You've already expressed that when we're in 360 VR, we're at the center of a sphere, but what's the differences of the other two categories?
VR is completely computer generated. It could also be photogrammetry, right? But it's completely generated by a computer and put in a 3D environment where you can move. That's full virtual reality. Then you have 360 video, which you're in the middle of a sphere, right? And you're looking up basically down, right, left, but you can't move. Then you have cinematic VR, which is basically 360 video, but in 3D. So you do have a little bit of that depth perception, but you still can't move, right? Now, what's coming in the future, and it's happening now, we're about to have a live event on Altspace VR with Randall Kleiser, which is a director of Grease, but he's also done a fully volumetric version of one of the songs in Grease, You're the One That I Want. We all know that song. Mm-hmm. He did a fully volumetric video of that where you can actually move around the dancers. That's the future of 360 video. It's not where you're going to be in the middle, but where you're going to be able to move around it. So today you have VR, but it's mostly computer generated, right? So you're creating these 3D environments either from scratch or using volumetric video. Then you have 360 video. Cinematic 360 is more 360 video with 3D. And then you have AR, which is really the outside world, right? The reality just augmented with more information or the ability to interact where digital objects can interact with real world objects.
Given that, there's been a lot of discussion on what kinds of projects work well for VR. Should filmmakers be interested or should we focus more on computer scientists?
No, completely. Filmmakers should be interested, and I'll explain why. Today, if you're doing a fully virtual reality native VR experience, you got to use Unity or you have to use Unreal. However, If you go and discover the different technologies, there's tons out there, and there are more and more coming up now that are allowing you to bootstrap and not do any programming whatsoever, just drag and drop creation. So that's one way that things are changing. And one thing we want to keep in mind with VR is that we are at a point right now that we were with the internet probably in early 2000. There were many skeptics about the internet, but you cannot judge VR today by today's standards, by what the technology we have, because the technology is changing so quickly, especially for narratives. There are some amazing animation that's being done where you can actually move through and interact through storytelling. There's other forms of storytelling where you can follow different actors and get their point of view at the entire story. So you still have a full storyline that you follow, but you can follow different actors and get their point of view. And that's being done today. So is it hard to do a fully interactive VR experience today? Yeah, it's not for the typical filmmaker, but it's getting there. And guaranteed in 5 years, it's going to be so much easier to do a full 6 degrees of freedom VR experience.
For people who are new to VR, what experiences do you recommend they check out to learn more?
Well, there's tons of experiences out there, but if you're more into the filmmaking side, I recommend 3 great ones. Number 1, check out Defrost, which is on VR, and it's a 12-part miniseries by Randall Kleiser. Check out Marshall from Detroit. It's a fantastic 3D 360 video that you want to check out. If you want to check out one where it mixes up virtual reality with interactivity, The Invisible Hours. This one allows you to follow a storyline, but pick different actors to follow and listen to their point of view about the story. Very, very interesting.
Well, if we judge from the hype meter, VR was suffering from massive hype 2 years ago, and then almost disappeared if we look at trade shows over the last year. What do you see as the key challenges that prevent VR from becoming successful?
I love that question. It's adoption. Too much friction to get into VR right now. So for example, I need a powerful computer. I'm attached to a cord. I have this big headset. However, in about 3 weeks or whenever this podcast airs, everything will change. And why is that? Oculus Quest is coming out. Oculus Quest is the first true untethered, no computer, no phone required, fully standalone, inside-out tracking, 6 degrees of freedom virtual reality headset, or what they call HMDs, head-mounted displays. When that comes out, this is going to open it up to the mass. It's still going to take a while. The thing is, with a phone, the adoption is easy. I could show you the phone. I can literally hold it in my hand and show you the screen, and people start getting it, and it was adopted quicker. But with a VR, the adoption with virtual reality is you have to be in it to really get it. So we have to figure out a way to convince people, not by being in it, but other means of why virtual reality is truly the future of computing. So really, it's how hard it is to get into VR today that's slowing down the adoption, but it's about to change.
One of the things you said is that filmmakers should pay attention to VR. For someone who's just getting started in VR, isn't a computer programmer, does have strong filmmaking skills, what key areas should they focus on as they start to explore this new industry?
Okay, number 1, get on all the experiences. Try out VR from a consumer perspective, but look at these VR experiences from the creative side, right? And figure out how do they do this. Second, get into 360 video. You can buy, for example, the E360 VR camera for, I think it's $300-400. It shoots 5.7K 360 VR, and start learning the workflow, because it doesn't matter if you have a $300 camera or a $20,000 VR set. The workflow is pretty much going to be the same. So learn the workflow, understand how it is different from filming traditional cinema, right? There is no frame. It's all over. Second, look at what people are doing. Look at what Brett Leonard is doing with 360. Look at what Randall Kleiser is doing with 360, and learn from them. And the beautiful part about all of this is there's no cinematic language yet. That means it's completely open for you to try and do whatever you can, because there's nothing that you can do that's wrong. We're all testing things out right now. But I definitely recommend jump into it, learn about gaming, learn about theater, learn about traditional cinema, and put it all together.
For people who do want to learn more about VR, where can they go on the web?
Let me think about that. Okay, just go to howtocreatevr.com.
That website is all one word, how to create VR, howtocreatevr.com. And Marcelo Lewin is the founder of howtocreatevr.com. And Marcelo, thanks for joining us today.
Pleasure, Larry.
Here's another website I want to introduce you to, doddlenews.com. Doddle News gives you a portal into the broadcast, video, and film industries. It's a leading online resource presenting news, reviews, and products for the film and video industry. Doddle News also offers a resource guide and crew management platform specifically designed for production. These digital call sheets, along with their app, directory, and premium listings, provide in-depth organizational tools for busy production professionals. Doddle News is a part of the Thalo Arts community, a worldwide community of artists, filmmakers, and storytellers. From photography to filmmaking, performing arts to fine arts, and everything in between, Thalo is filled with resources you need to succeed. Whether you want the latest industry news, need to network with other creative professionals, or require state-of-the-art online tools to manage your next project, there's only one place to go, doddlenews.com. Steve Weiss is a co-founder of and creative director for Zacuto. He also has more than 40 years' experience as a photographer and director for corporate commercials and fashions with numerous awards to his credit. Hello, Steve. Welcome back.
Hey, Larry. How's it going?
I've been looking forward to our conversation ever since you agreed to be on the show, so I'm a happy camper at the moment, because tonight we're looking at the state of production technology. As our closing guest, I'm interested in your thoughts on what production technology is hot right now.
Well, I don't really care.
Why not?
I've said this like a million times, it's really more about talent than about technology. I mean, in our 2012 shootout, we kind of proved that, you could take any camera and make it look great. It was all about mastering the camera, and the technology was there. It's about how much talent you have and what you can do with it, and knowing how to light. So my DP, who I've been with for 37 years, he can take any camera and make it look great. So I don't know. I mean, the funny thing is the other day we had to shoot something, and we had one of these gimbal, what's it called? God, I forgot the name. But I had one of these little handheld gimbal things, and we ended up using the iPhone. Looked better.
Well,
I would say that's my favorite camera.
When you talk about the camera shootout you did in 2012, what did you do and what did you learn?
Well, we did a blind test where we it was a big deal. There was almost 700 people involved in that. We built a set, and we allowed a team that claimed they were a specialist in each one of these cameras, starting from an iPhone 4 to like a GH5 and a Canon C300, all the way up to an Alexa. Had a Red, Alexa. I don't remember all the specific cameras. And then we screened them in theaters, all around the world. We have in Australia, in England, in Germany, in the U.S. at Skywalker Ranch, and for the ASC, and we labeled them as A through F. And then after we screened the same shot by every camera, people would comment on it. And I mean, there was some surprising results. One ASC member liked the iPhone the best. Francis Ford Coppola, who showed up to one of the screenings, picked the GH5. So, I mean, in 2012, we were already having people saying that the technology was good enough. Now it's 7 years later. So, I mean, really, they're all great cameras. Any one of them is, I guess it boils down to ergonomics, what you like, you know.
Well, if technology isn't the key, and you have been saying that for years, I agree, what should filmmakers focus on to grow their business?
Story, rehearsals, lighting, and please don't do your own sound. Hire a sound man.
Thank you. Thank you.
Because sound is, to me, more important than picture. And I've only been involved with picture my whole life. I mean, I've been involved with sound, too, because it's part of picture. But, yeah, I would focus on sound. When you go to a movie theater and you hear bad sound, that does not say good movie.
No, I've walked out of those, actually.
When you hear great sound, now you're looking to story next, and then picture. So I don't really put picture at the top. And although I'm in the picture business, you know, but I asked that question. I actually interviewed, I did another film called Light and Shadow, where I interviewed 35 ASC members, and I asked them, these were cinematographers, what's more important, picture or sound? And probably 2/3 of them said sound. So that was pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm. If you think about it, people will watch a black screen with interesting sound, but they'll have a hard time watching a screen with lots of activity with no sound.
I mean, it's everything. I mean, if this show was all staticky and crackly, people would tune out. We always say, you know, bad sound is intolerable. Bad picture could be a creative choice.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had many people send me, you know, films, and and it's kind of, you know, characters are kind of moving in and out of focus. And I know it's because they're using, you know, DSLRs and this very shallow depth of field. And many of them have said, oh, no, I wanted that. I wanted to get, you know, have this feeling of them dipping in and out of focus. And I'm like, okay, you know, that's cool. That's your creative choice. And like I said, picture, you can do whatever you want. The key is it really boils down to the story and rehearsals and how well the acting is. It's really more in that realm, and that all goes into the talent phase, you know, screen direction. How many times do you watch something and just a really creative shot is what gets you?
When you and I were talking about this interview before tonight, you said something I found very intriguing. Where should filmmakers focus their efforts? On theatrical or television or somewhere else?
Well, I mean, I've asked this question for the last 15 years to various different filmmakers and various different web series that we've done. And I always get this response that, and I did it, my God, we did it on our Zacuto live show 2 weeks ago. And I always get this really weird response. I say, would you rather have 1,000 people see your film in a darkened movie theater or 100,000 on the web? And shockingly, I don't know, 50% say a theater, 50%, something like that, say that they would rather have the volume of viewers. And I had a guest on that was like laughing. She was like, are you kidding me? It's like, you created this piece. To me, I would want a volume of people to see it on various platforms. It doesn't really matter to me. But I am shocked when I hear people that there's just such this urge to be in a movie theater when only 165 pictures get released a year, and Hollywood has a hard time getting that right. So the odds of getting in there are pretty rare. I wouldn't even focus on that. I'd be more interested in getting a lot of viewers online.
Well, except, let me push back on that, and I totally understand your shock, and I'm probably the same, but if a filmmaker is interested in making money, they would probably make more money off 1,000 people in a theater than 100,000 views on YouTube. As I know from the 100,000 views that I get on my YouTube stuff, would not barely buy lunch.
Well, in both cases, you wouldn't get any money. So 1,000 people in the movie theater is no money, and 100,000 people on the web is no money. But what you should be focusing on is finding a producer's rep company, and if they tune into this show, we gave lots of examples of them. It was a couple of weeks ago on Zacuto Live, where they have a whole plan to get you into Amazon, Fandango, all these places, not Netflix. People need to not get focused on Netflix because Netflix buys their content where these other platforms, you get paid on a sort of a licensing agreement. Some of them are paid on a per-view situation, and it allows you to do marketing. And this woman explains exactly how you can do all your own marketing. And she has films that are doing in the $300,000 range, $600,000 range, no stars. It's possible using all of these platforms. But again, people, they contact me and I'm like, what do I got to do to be on Netflix? Well, that's just as hard as being in a movie theater, because that's a sale. But there are ways to go about this, but you seriously have to do your research, and YouTube is not the way.
No, very true. YouTube is for the general market, but there's a lot of better options, as you've just mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to give one piece of advice, aside from pay attention to talent, pay attention to story, and rehearse, that focuses on what it takes to be successful as a business, what would your thoughts be?
Well, you mean, are we talking about for an indie film or for like a corporate production company?
No, let's do corporate production. I like that.
Okay. Number one, I've said it 1,000 times, you need to get yourself, and I've said it on your show, you need to get yourself a businessman who sells and gets you work. Because every time I see a production company, it's two creative guys that get together and say, let's form a production company. And then they go and they find a job, they do it. But the second you start doing it, you're unemployed because you don't have this businessman, a salesman. And I've had one, and every company needs it, who's out there hawking work for you every single day so that you're working on 5 projects at once and he's still finding you new ones. So that's my advice. Get a businessman. It's worth getting jobs are hard to get in this industry. So it's worth anything you have to pay to get them.
I like that advice. Find a businessman who's selling while you're creating. A wonderful idea. For people who want more information about the information you have on the web, where can they go?
Zacuto.com. We have a link that has all our web series, and we also have Zacuto Live now every Wednesday at 11 a.m.
That's one website.
Type it into Facebook.
Which is Zacuto, Zacuto.com. Thanks, Steve. Bye-bye.
Hey, thanks, Ray.
You know, I was just thinking, earlier this week, Apple updated their MacBook Pro line of laptops with faster processors with more cores. But the new gear is the same size. It has the same limited ports, the same potential issues with heat dissipation, but it has a new and allegedly improved butterfly keyboard. A keyboard that's been a problem for 3 years. As a good friend sent me in an email last night. "Oh, sure," he wrote, "like it's really fixed this time. I'll believe it when Casey Johnson and Joanna Stern say it's fixed." The only reason the butterfly keyboard exists is that Apple believes that Pro laptops are thin laptops, which is both arrogant and misguided. When I do video production or video editing or audio editing on location, tasks which are considered Pro functions, I travel with a 20-pound bag of dongles to connect every potential piece of gear out there, because I need HDMI and audio out and a micro SD slot, none of which Apple considers Pro anymore. Every year I promise myself that I will buy a new Apple laptop. I have the money, it's in the bank. Yet every year Apple updates their laptops and doesn't fix the keyboard, doesn't fix the heat issues, doesn't add more ports, and GPU power continues to be constrained. So I'm still traveling with a 2013 MacBook Pro, which has plenty of ports, a slower CPU, and a keyboard that has never failed. Increasingly, CPU speed is less important as GPU speed and storage bandwidth take center stage at higher resolution formats. But these new Pro units boost the CPU, not GPU. And MacBook Pros still only have a 1 gigabit Ethernet. Still, they are thin. As you know, Apple doesn't share its hardware plans with the public, so I have no inside knowledge. But it's my hope that these units are a placeholder for a complete system redesign coming in the next year. A Pro laptop that is thicker, that includes a better, more reliable keyboard, more ports, faster GPUs, and a heat sink big enough to cool Cleveland. And if they need to slow down the CPU to accommodate that, that's a good trade-off. I'm happy that consumers like thin. I think thin is cute. But excuse me, while I grab my case of parts, I need to get some work done. Just something I'm thinking about. I want to thank our guests tonight, Dave Walton with JVC, Piet Thiele with Schneider-Kreuznach, Marcelo Lewin with HowToCreateVR.com, Steve Weiss with Zacuto, and James DeRuvo with DoddleNews.com. There's a lot of history in our industry, and it's all posted to our website at digitalproductionbuzz.com. Here you'll find thousands of interviews, all online and all available to you today. And remember to sign up for our free weekly show newsletter that comes out every Saturday. Talk with us on Twitter at DPBuzz and Facebook at digitalproductionbuzz.com. Transcripts are provided by TakeOne.tv. Our theme music is composed by Nathan Doogie Turner with additional music provided by SmartSound.com. Our producer is Paulina Borowski. My name is Larry Jordan, and thanks for listening to the Digital Production Buzz. The Digital Production Buzz is copyright 2019 by Thalo LLC.